Okay, so ever since I posted my shiny Budu video, I've had a lot of people requesting for me to do a shiny chaining guide for Generation 4. So after 18 failed hunts, 18 failed chains, I finally got the footage to make one. Right, so for you new trainers, what is chaining? Chaining is essentially a method that was introduced in Generation 4 that enables you to encounter the same Pokemon over and over again in a cycle. Its obvious intended purpose is to make EV training easier for the player so you can give your Pokemon the best stats possible. But it also comes with a hidden side effect that's far more interesting for players like myself. And that is that the higher the chain, the more likely it is that you will encounter a shiny Pokemon, taking your odds all the way down to 1 in 200 once you've chained 40 or more of the same Pokemon. Now, I guarantee that's got a couple of people interested, but first things first, there's a couple of things you're going to need. Number 1, you're going to need the Poké Radar. This is given to you by Professor Rowan after you beat the Sinnoh Dex and you've beaten the Pokemon League. Number 2, lots of max repels to keep away random Pokemon while you hunt. Number 3, this one is completely optional. Trainer Counter App number 20. It's not completely necessary, but it's really helpful because it keeps track of your chains in real time. This is given to you by Professor Oak the first time you visit Pal Park. Number 4, a good stock of whichever Pokeballs you plan on using. I recommend repeat balls for this, but anything works. Number 5, patience and a lot of focus. Determination's key for this. It won't happen quickly, but it will happen, so just keep at it. Number 6, a team of high level Pokemon with high PP moves for defeating chained Pokemon. Number 7 is also completely optional. If you want your shiny Pokemon to have a certain nature, bring along a Pokemon with the ability Synchronize. Have it at the front of your party even if it's fainted, and then there's a 50% chance that the wild shiny you encounter will have the same nature as it. If you want something that's got a beneficial nature, I highly recommend this. I don't do this because I like there to be a bit of guesswork with my shinies, but hey ho, whatever works. So, how do I go about starting a Pokemon chain? Well, first things first, you're going to need a large patch of grass. Chaining is possible in smaller patches, but it's a lot more difficult and a lot less likely to yield you a shiny patch. Here are a couple of examples of places where chaining is possible. Route 214, you can find Houndour here at night. Route 222, you can find Magnemite and Chatot. The Valor Lakefront has Girafarig, Nidorino and Nidorina. Route 209, you can find Ralts and Duskull. Route 202 has Shinx, Bidoof and Starly. I bring this up because Route 202 is great for beginners, because a lot of the Pokemon there have a high encounter rate. This means that you can potentially mess up your chain without it breaking, thanks to their encounter rate being so high. I recommend new trainers go for something simple like Bidoof to start off, and then gradually work yourself up once you've worked out how the game mechanics work. Okay, so you found yourself a big old patch of grass and a Pokemon that you want to hunt. The first thing you need to do is spray yourself a max repel to keep away random encounters, move yourself into the center of the patch and save your game. This means that if things go wrong and your chain breaks, you can always reset and have all of your repels back. This is a godsend because it means you won't spend a lot of money, but it also means you can keep retrying your first encounter until you find your target Pokemon, effectively resetting until you get what you want. Now, if you use your Poké Radar while you're here, you'll notice that 4 patches of grass within a vicinity of you begin to shake, seemingly randomly. Each of these patches represents a wild Pokemon encounter, and take note, the patch of grass that you enter first is important. Now I know you're probably saying, wait what, Oshi? Patches of grass? What? Oh, don't worry, I'll explain. You see, there are different types of shaking grass. There is standard shaking grass, which is very subtle but it has the longest animation. There is also something called shaking leafy grass, which is much more noticeable, but its animation is a lot shorter. The third and most desirable shaking grass is the shiny patch, aka the entire reason you're doing this. Shiny patches have a 100% chance of yielding a shiny Pokemon encounter. It seems to be an area of misunderstanding for a lot of shiny chaining novices like myself, but as your chain increases, your odds of finding a shiny Pokemon don't increase directly. Your odds of finding a shiny patch do. This means that every single patch of grass you enter before the shiny patch has full odds. It doesn't get easier until the shiny patch appears. Does that make sense? Anyway, you need to stick to the same patch of grass during your chain, so if the first thing you enter is shaking leafy grass, that's what you go in every time. If you switch, your chain will break. So now you know the basics and you've got your patches presented. Walk yourself into an encounter, it doesn't matter which for the first one. Is it the Pokemon that you want? Because if it is, then you have 2 options. You can KO it in battle or you can capture it. Running away will break your chain. If it's not the Pokemon you want, then reset and try again until it is. So after defeating or capturing the Pokemon, you'll see 4 new patches begin to shake. This is where things get a little weird. I mentioned earlier that the grass shakes appear to be in random locations, but they're not. Essentially, there are 4 rings around your player, and each patch will appear in one of these rings. So how this works is the further away the patch of grass is from you, the higher the chance that your chain will continue. So a patch that's 1 away from you has a 28% chance to continue your chain, 2 away is 48%, 3 away is 68%, and the 4 away patch has an 88% chance to continue your chain. You can increase these odds by 10% each if you capture the Pokemon in battle rather than defeating it. However, as you can see, they never quite add up to 100%. This means your chain can and will break randomly. Trust me, it sucks, but like I said, patience and determination is key. Anyway, going back to what we were saying, your best odds are always the 4 away space, so this is what you'll be aiming to find every time you see Shaking Grass. If your radar doesn't show a Shaking Grass patch in the 4 away spot, you can reset it by running 50 steps and then using the item again. Do this until a suitable 4 away patch shakes. If you do this for long enough, with a pinch of luck, you can get yourself into some crazy high chains. But there are some things you need to avoid while you do this. So number 1, never enter a border grass tile. This will definitely break your chain. Number 2, try to avoid boxing yourself into a corner, because this reduces the amount of potential grass tiles that can shake and will likely break your chain. Number 3, don't get on your bike, it breaks your chain. Number 4, don't let your shaking grass patches go off screen, because this will break your chain. Number 5, be careful when you take a step up. Some patches can potentially shake behind your trainer's head and you might accidentally break your chain stepping into it. Number 6 is self-explanatory. Don't turn off your DS mid-chain. If you want to take a break, just encounter a Pokemon and enter sleep mode during the battle. Okay, so you've taken in everything I've said and you've managed to get yourself up to a chain of 40. This is where your odds are at an all-time high. 1 in 200 chance of seeing a shiny patch. So what do you do next? Well, this is the end stretch, and this is where I found that you'll use the most repels. You need to keep resetting your Poke Radar and avoiding any patch that appear, even the 4 away ones, if they aren't the shiny patch. With enough patience, one will eventually appear, and that's that, you've chained a shiny Pokemon. But it's not over there. Your chain will continue at 1 in 200 odds until you break it. This means you can potentially find multiple shinies in the same chain, as I did in my buddy video. So there you have it guys, that's my shiny chaining guide for Generation 4. I will quickly show the nickname, nature, and everything about this Shinx that I caught straight afterwards. It's also worth noting, in the production of this video I actually found myself a shiny Registeel in Gen 6 too. Right, so if you guys found this helpful, just leave me a little comment saying like, "Hey yo Oshi, thank you bro," or just something stupid. Something stupid like that. And thanks a lot for watching guys.